Welcome to Beyond the OR with Dr. Kevin Brenner. I'm a board-certified plastic surgeon in Beverly Hills. I want to take you beyond my world of plastic surgery, diving deep into exciting hot topics and delving even deeper into compelling characters that I've met along the way. We'll be talking with attorneys, actors, comedy writers, Navy SEALs, and many other fascinating and inspiring people with truly intriguing stories to share. So let's jump right in. Welcome back to Beyond the OR with Dr. Brenner. Today we are super excited to have with us an icon in the soap opera world, an actor, a New York Times bestselling author, Maurice Benard. You may know him from General Hospital as Sonny Corinthos. He's been outspoken, vocal about mental health, and today, mental health is just what we're going to be talking about. So, Maurice,
What's going on?
welcome to our show.
Thank you. Honored
So good to
be
have
here.
you.
Yeah, it's good to be here.
So, we're going to dive in. I know you're not shy about this. So,
Yes.
you were 22 years old when you were diagnosed with bipolar depression?
I was 21. Was in a mental institution at 21. I had my birthday in there, my 22nd birthday, and it was a nightmare in there.
I can imagine.
Yeah, I mean, like at night, I would hear people screaming and there was there was bars on the windows, and I got a good story about that. I was in there 2.5 weeks, and then I escaped. But while I was in there, they let you go out into this area, and it was sunny. Sunny.
You did that on purpose.
Full circle.
You did that on purpose.
I knew it was coming, but it was like, and I'm crying, like a baby, and this guy came up. He was one of the guys that worked there. He goes, "What's wrong?" I said, "I don't think I can make it. I don't think I can do this anymore." And I'm crying with him, and he's crying a little bit. I was crying a lot more. And he said, "You're gonna make it. I know you're gonna make it." I go, "How do you know?" He goes, "Believe me, I know." And sure enough, I escaped there, and then a couple years later, I got all my children, and I went back to that mental hospital, and I saw him. And I said, "Hey, man, remember me? We were hugging." And he goes, "Yeah." I said, "How did you know?" He goes, I know you're on all my children now. I said, "How did you know I was going to make it?" And he said, "Because I was in Vietnam, and I was in a mental hospital in there for a year. And I knew that if I could do it, you could do it."
Oh, wow.
And it was like, whoa, man, that's so cool. But it's very tough in there, very tough.
So, what was it that allowed you to kind of get past that moment and kind of sort of reintroduce yourself to the world?
I gotta say this because it's the way I feel and the way I felt. A lot of times you feel like you can't do it. When I was in the mental institution, I didn't think I could do it. And many times after that, I've felt that I couldn't do it. And it's great to have people around you that are strong, but you gotta have faith. And to me, it's God is what puts me over. Because it seems like with me, every time I'm just about to do something I'm not supposed to do and I pray, I end up getting through it. So a lot of that is, and I don't care if it's God or if it's the Buddha or if it's anything, you gotta believe in something because life's too difficult.
Life is difficult. Life, I've recently learned, is just a series of problems and how you figure out how to handle them.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is. You were 21 years old. You get out of the mental institution. Were you already into acting at that point?
Well, what happened was, the story goes as I was modeling, very unsuccessful. Okay. But I thought I could do it, and I couldn't. I'm 5'9". The women were 6 feet. You know, I guess I was cute, but cute ain't gonna be enough. So I didn't do well in modeling. And then I said, you know, I got to do something because I wasn't going anywhere. So I got into acting, and I went to an acting coach named Michael Olton, and I smiled because it's just the whole story. I mean, it's in my book, but I said, he says, you want to be an actor? I said, yeah, I want to act. I don't know. He goes, let me give you some sides from American Buffalo, and just read it, and we'll go back and forth. So I'm like, hey, Bobby, hey, we're from New York, from Brooklyn, you know what I mean? Hey, bring it over here. Come on. What are you doing? And I finished, and he looked at me, he goes, you've never acted? And I said, no. He goes, okay. So I went back to my agent, and my agent said, you know what Michael Olton said to you about you? And I said, no, what? He goes, you're going to be the next Al Pacino. But the problem was, and it's weird that I didn't become the next Al Pacino in movies, but on soap operas, it's kind of that way. But the problem was I wasn't ready to hear it, so that took me too high, and that's when I had the nervous breakdown that put me in the hospital. I forgot your question already, but it's all right.
Well, no, we were talking about how you got into acting.
Oh, that's it.
And you know, it's listen, in life, everyone has their shit.
Yeah.
This much I've learned. Everyone's got something. This is, you know, bipolar depression is your something. Right?
Yeah.
Now, a lot of people would look at that and say, well, shit, he's got bipolar depression, and that's his liability. But you've actually turned that into an asset, right? I mean,
Yes.
when you were on General Hospital, you actually had them write that into the character, right? Because who knows it better than someone that's lived it?
Yeah.
That continues to live it, right?
Yeah. In the beginning, the character didn't have bipolar. Well, it did, but it wasn't written. I started the show, and it's funny because I just had dinner with all these people during that period. I started the show, and I didn't know during the show that I was going through my third nervous breakdown. So I quit the show, and they could have fired me in a second, you know, nowadays. But maybe not nowadays, because at that time, that's 30 years ago, bipolar mental illness was kind of a stigma.
Right.
So thank God that they didn't fire me. But after being on the show for about a year and a half, they came to me and said, is it all right if we write your character as bipolar? And I said, yeah, that's cool. Because, you know, being a method actor, being this guy I said, that's great. So little did I know that it was great for my acting, but horrible for my mental health.
That's what I was going to ask you. Like, I am also an actress, and sometimes when you're playing something so close to your real life, that kind of can bleed, and it's hard to get out of that character. Did you find it easy to, like, what was that process like when you're playing a mob boss who has bipolar, and then in real life, is there a time where the reality and make-believe like collide?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Well, that's what happened in the beginning. That's why I quit. It was too much pressure. And in the beginning, I had like a Godfather poster in my room. I would listen to the Godfather theme, and then I'd go do scenes. And then it just took me over, and I had the third breakdown, and then that's a whole other story.
That's a whole other show.
That's pretty intense. And then when I went back, you know, yeah, you know, I didn't. Only now have I learned to leave that on the set,
Right.
and go listen to music and get out of that state of mind. Because
Did it again. I mean, this guy's a pro.
But it's funny because I've been so great for the last couple of years. Because anxiety is the thing that has almost taken me out. Depression I've had quite a bit, but it's the anxiety that it scares the hell out of me. And I think, a lot of that has to do with playing a character with bipolar and playing it too long, and it's too much pressure, and I didn't know how to figure it out. I remember one time on the set, I'd done this breakdown story for like 3-4 months, and I knew I was in trouble because at the end of it, I'm in the scene, and I hear my mom and dad talking. And I'm like, oh no. And I'm like, oh boy. And then that weekend, I'm in bed, and I get out of bed, and I'm scared, fear. And I'm like, oh man. And I think, oh boy, man, I'm having my 4th breakdown. And then I was supposed to fly to Washington to speak in front of Congress. So one of the only things I haven't done that was one of my goals. And I get up, I said, Paula, wake up. And I said, I think I'm losing my mind. And she goes, honey, no, it's just an anxiety attack. And I'm like, oh man, that was but it was too much of story, but I never learned my lesson. And I kept going to work, playing this stuff, and I've had anxiety all over. But I got to tell you, the worst anxiety was the pandemic, which almost took me to the brink.
I suffer from anxiety.
Oh, you do? It's
Everyone suffers from anxiety. I often joke with Elizabeth about I have intake.
Yeah.
When I see a new patient, I have intake forms.
Yeah.
Like check off like your medical history. Like I joke that like I should have anxiety and depression just already checked off.
Yeah.
Because I mean,
Everybody.
80-90% of patients suffer from it in some capacity, and for some it's manageable.
Debilitating anxiety is
It's a different animal.
The difference between everybody's anxiety that has anxiety, whatnot, you can get through pretty much normal anxiety, as you probably know. You get through it. And I've never had to take medication for it. Obviously, for my manic depression, bipolar, I've been taking lithium for 30 years. I haven't had another breakdown in 30 years.
Right.
But
Amazing.
anxiety, I never took medication. But when you get the debilitating anxiety.
I'm on medication for anxiety.
You still on? Like Lexapro?
Yeah.
Ah!
I just told him, he's like, you're on Lexapro? I'm like, yeah, I have debilitating anxiety sometimes where, something will happen and it triggers that, I had to take a hiatus from work for a while, and it's like I can't get out of bed. So and you're in a dark hole, and it's almost like that's where you feel like you're thriving right now. Like I get in that dark hole and I want to stay there, and you don't want to see, and you want to isolate, and that's the worst thing you could do. But you're like, I need to do this right now, but you can't.
You don't want to be
because-
around people.
No. And you don't feel like they really understand because they're like, oh, it's just
I
stressed
get
out.
it.
You're stressed out. And you're like,
get it.
It's a little bit more than stressed out. It's
how is it more than just being stressed out? Try to explain that.
it's a pressure on my chest. It's these kind of voices, I would say, in your head that say, you're not good enough, you're not gonna do it, you're not, you're gonna die. I think a lot about death. Like death is something that, my husband, he jokes about it and he's like, I'll get any little ailment and I think I'm gonna die. But that's also, I grew up in a cult. So I grew up with tomorrow, Armageddon is coming like a thief in the night.
Ooh.
So nighttime is my debilitating anxiety. Like, and I had to get on Lexapro because I would go out to dinner and I would start, like, all of a sudden the restaurant's closing in and I'm like, my husband knows, I start to get white and I'm like, get me out of here.
Wow.
So
I mean, that's different than stress. You know, stress,
Yeah.
like we
Yeah.
we learn in medical school. Yeah, stress is a psychological response, right?
Right.
It is your mental response to a perceived threat.
Right.
That's what stress is.
Right.
Anxiety is stress on steroids, right?
Yes.
There you go.
It's a different level because you actually
Yes.
I mean, I'm stressed out all the time. I'm busy
Yeah,
doing this, that, and the
yeah.
other. Anxiety is actual physiologic. A lot of people have a physiologic reaction to it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, let me tell you, that's a great thing you said. Which is similar to what you're talking about, during the pandemic, or before the pandemic started, it actually hit, and my mom and dad moved out of my house, stress, pressure. My show stopped. That hadn't happened in 30 years. So,
Because of the pandemic.
right.
Okay.
what was the other one? I thought it was the end of the world. Oh, I was supposed to go on tour in New York for my book, and that ain't happening now. So my wife came in and told me all these things. I felt the cold rush in me. Okay? And I'm like, okay. You feel it, and then you try to act cool, right?
Yeah, you try to manage it.
Yeah. You're like,
I got
oh,
this.
okay. So I'm not going to New York? No, honey, you're not going. So how am I going to do the tour then? It's going to be on Zoom.
You're like, what's that?
Right? And I'm like, all right. That night, I get out of bed, and my whole body's like this. And that's never happened to me with, but 3 breakdowns, anxiety, depression. My whole body's shaking. And Paul, my wife's on the bed, and I'm like, what the fuck is this? Because what happens is now everything is amplified of fear. Now I'm thinking, this is it.
Oh yeah, I didn't put on the TV.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't want to know if the world's gonna end. I live that.
Right?
You know, the pandemic.
Yes.
Oh well, I mean, but by the way, you think I'm exempt? You know, I mean, we just celebrated St. Patrick's Day. St. Patrick's Day of 2020. I was operating when we started getting these text messages from everybody all over Beverly Hills that like we're shutting it down. The city shut us down. Like I didn't even know if I was able to finish my case.
Yeah.
They shut it. They said we are closed. There's nothing. Go home. Turn off the lights. That's it. And like you, I'm sitting at home, and I'm like, holy crap! This is the end of my career.
Yeah.
Right?
That's it, man.
I mean,
Yeah.
I was there with you, but in my living room.
Yes.
Right. I'm sitting there watching the TV every day, waiting for Garcetti to give us some good news, and then they just keep.
It was worse and worse.
postponing it. It was
But it
months.
was, once that cut, but for me, it was never physical like that. So that's what scared me even more. Now I had to get up every morning almost to do Zooms with the Talk, Charlemagne the God, all these people. Dr. Drew, little did they know, because this is what I wanted to say to them. I'm about to kill myself. Can you save me? That was the interview, but I couldn't say that.
That's not why they invited you on.
Because I knew they'd call the cops, right? There would be cops at my door. So I couldn't say that, but I would just fake it. And I faked it all pretty good, although I saw an interview I did with Donnie Wahlberg and his wife that you could tell that I'm messed up, but they don't know. But I had to do that for months to promote the book.
Does it become physical when I go through my depressions? I get these black circles
Oh, the whole thing.
under it. So I have a funny story. When I had pancreatitis,
That's a segue.
well, and I'll tell you why. I was diagnosed with acute pancreatitis. I had been in and out of the hospital. And I was in my backyard meditating. I'm like, okay, I got to control this anxiety, this stress. I'm in the backyard. And I had put crystals all over my body, in my pants, in my shirt. And
I'm learning so much about you.
I know, right? So I walk in my house, and all of a sudden, I hear woo in my, and it was, I was starting to get like dizzy, and I was like, ooh. So I sat down, and I had a full-fledged panic attack, like full-fledged. So they called 911. My husband comes home. And I'm like, I'm having a heart attack. And they're like, you're not having a heart attack. And I'm like, all of a sudden, the EMT pulls, he's like, I'm gonna put your shirt open because I'm gonna put these
Crystals everywhere.
Crystals start popping out, right? They take me to the hospital, all these, and he's like, ma'am, do you have any more crystals? I go, not in any orifices. No orifices, just I get to the hospital, I put on the gown, and another crystal falls out. And my husband's like, if this wasn't so scary, I would be dying. So I had a trail of crystals all over. And it was that moment, they said, that sometimes when you're so relaxed, your body could, because when you have anxiety, it's on fight or flight all the time. So when you finally relax,
Exhausting.
it's your body like
Interesting,
takes over.
I can see that,
Yeah. So Maurice, you have this, it's such an important message that you're sharing with the world, because you don't have to be diagnosed with bipolar or anxiety or stress or anything to feel the change that the world is going through. And I would say that it is such an important topic because everybody seems right now to be, you've taken away the stigma of like, and you've been so open with it. Do you realize how many people, does that help you heal also? Like how many people you're really helping by being so vulnerable?
We just talked about that.
And putting yourself out there?
Yeah, I knew, I did Oprah like 4 times, I think, or twice one on couch. And I thought that was going to be the thing. That was going to
Launch you? Launch
the mental
Launch the
message.
conversation.
Yeah, the message, exactly. Because I was already on GH and popular and that, so but I thought the message would be, and it kind of didn't really, it was great and I loved doing it, but nothing happened until the pandemic. And then
So how did you waylay that? Was that the genesis?
What the hell is waylay? I love that.
Like turn into.
That's a cool word. I'm using that. What is it? Waylay?
You're gonna give me credit, right?
Yeah. Waylay. Isn't there another word too? Like
There's lots of other words. So how did you turn that? Was that the genesis of State of Mind? State of Mind.
Oh,
is,
yeah.
We've referenced it, but State of Mind is your podcast, right?
Yeah. What happened was I'll just tell you that story. What happened was I was sleeping one night and I had an anxiety attack. This was about 2.5 years ago. And then I filmed myself because I thought the audience would love to see what that's about. So I filmed it. And as I was, no lie, as I was filming it, Steve Harvey's on TV. And he's going, these people who film themselves on TikTok, and these people are ridiculous, and here I am doing it. So next morning I said to my friend, I said, Melissa, this is what happened. She goes, why don't you forget Steve Harvey, why don't you film yourself on the phone and we'll put it out. I said, nobody's gonna care about me talking about my mental health. She goes, just do it. So we did it. I said, when are you going to put it out? She goes, Sunday. I said, nobody watches on a Sunday. And it's on Instagram story. Nobody talks for 8 minutes straight on Instagram story. We did it. And sure enough, I was getting 10 to 20,000 people every Sunday. I'd go in my car on Sunday, and then I got the book. So then I'm promoting the book as I'm doing it. And I just did it. And then people said, go to YouTube. And I'm like, I don't care about YouTube. I always say no to everything. And then I end up doing it. And they said, no, YouTube would be good. I said, then I started putting it on YouTube. And now nobody wanted to hear me talk by myself. They want me to be with people.
Right.
And I've been doing that for 2 years. And the pandemic is a curse and a blessing. The curse is there's so many suicides. The blessing is we're all talking about it. And I think the beauty of the pandemic, if you could think of that as beauty, is anybody who's ever said to you, go sleep it off, you're all right. It's just, they're experiencing it for the first time and they're going, oh, now I know what this is about.
Well, I mean, I'm so glad you guys brought this up. It's like super important, right? And, you know, I always tell Elizabeth, like how we kind of look for people on the show is it's things that are kind of relevant to me and relevant to my life and things that I'm super interested in. And when I was growing up, my mom was, I mean, she certainly had major depression. I don't know if she met the strict criteria for bipolar. Maybe we can talk about that in a second. But I mean, I remember, you know, when I was in grammar school, high school, I didn't know what the problem was. I had no idea. It just wasn't talked about.
Yeah,
Like,
no.
in the 80s, no one was really discussing it. It wasn't until I was in medical school, it was after my mom passed away, when I was finishing up medical school, that I started looking back and realizing she had major depression. Like at least she had major depression and perhaps had kind of a tint toward bipolar. I don't think she quite had the manic episodes quite the same, but like, I remember every morning my brother and I would get up and it was like we were on our own making breakfast, and then my stepdad would take us to school. On the weekends, she'd sleep till noon. I just thought that was normal, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you don't know any better, you just think that's normal.
Yeah.
And so that was my normal growing up, and it's not until like I'm like the light bulb went off. It was like a Kaiser Sosa moment from Visual Sosa. I'm like, holy shit, this is what was going on. And I don't think she was ever diagnosed, or at least not properly diagnosed.
Yeah.
So can you, for our listeners and viewers, can you kind of go through, because there's I don't think a lot of people understand bipolar depression. I don't think a lot of people understand lots of different mental diagnoses. There's a very common misconception that bipolar depression is psychoses, which it's not, although you can have a component of psychoses. Like when you heard your parents talking to you, like that's a hallucination, which is a version of psychoses. Can you kind of explain that?
Yeah, bipolar is, you know, it's funny because a friend of mine who's on General Hospital, he played bipolar, and I was guiding him through what it's like to play a character with a bipolar. And he did a scene once, and it was a monologue, and I went out and I said, "Bri, you gotta, it's, you know, being manic is like when you're on cocaine.
Pressured speech.
Yeah, you know, you talk. It's like
You talk fast.
Yeah, it's like Eminem, you know, when doing one of his raps.
Right.
And you feel like you're God, and you feel like you can take on anything. That's manic. I'd be talking to my dad at the house, and I was using these huge words. And they're looking at me like, who am I talking to?
Right.
I don't use these huge words. I was like, like I always see doctors are like these superior.
Use a lot of big words.
Yeah,
well, we pay a lot of money for medical school to learn those words. So you gotta work them into conversation.
It's funny, but you know, because me, I'm street smart, so I don't. But I'm talking like that, and then one time, this is another manic. This is when it first started, my first breakdown. I was in my buddy's house. We had smoking some weed, and then he's sitting in front of me, and I said, "Jeff," he's now passed away, like all my friends said, "Don't worry, Anna." And I said, "I know what you're thinking, man. I can read your mind." He goes, "Shut up." I said, think something. And he goes, I said, you're thinking about this. And he goes, I said, think about something else. And I said it. He goes, dude, you're scaring the hell out of me.
Freaking me out.
Yeah, he left to his room. Everything is heightened, right? That's manic. I jumped in the swimming pool with my clothes on, thinking it was a beautiful moment. Well, he's right in front of me, just right in front of me. And I said, I think I'm losing my mind, man. Because even then, I kind of was smart enough to know that. And he goes, no, you're not. I said, yeah, I think I am. And so I jumped in the swimming pool with my clothes on. And then he jumped in. And he goes, I told you, you're not.
Oh.
It was cool.
It
was cool, right? But in reality, he was wrong. But he wanted me to not think I was, which is a beautiful thing. So.
And it's that moment that you're like, okay, I'm going to be okay.
Yes, for the
right?
moment you think you're going to be okay, but then it just escalated and escalated. And I swear I was watching Phil Donahue with my mom. She'll vouch for it. And right before Phil Donahue would say something, I would say it. I said, Mom, watch. I'd say it. And then she'd look at me. I think she'd say something like, Hijo, don't do it. I said, Mom, watch. Phil Donahue, before he said something, I said it. That's manic. And then after manic, though, what happens with me, which is actually a good thing, is the crash is so hard that I hated it. See, and I hate to bring up Kanye West again because now maybe he's not bipolar, I don't know, whatever. Some people, their crash isn't that bad, so they like it. They like to be manic. But I didn't love being manic. Some of it I loved, but the crash was so hard that I'm like.
Well, I would imagine that manic stage makes you feel like it's almost got to be like a rush.
Like you're invincible.
Right. So, yeah, like you're so powerful and just so, like I've got the world by the balls.
How long
Yes.
do those episodes typically last?
Well,
is it a day, 2 days?
For me, they last about 2 weeks.
Oh, really? That long?
Yeah, and then.
And are you sleeping during that time?
That's the key, man.
For 2 weeks?
That's the key. I know where I'm at. That's what I tell the State of Mind audience. I know where I'm at by how I'm sleeping. I have sleep apnea, but I'm not using my machine. I've been great for 2 years sleeping, man. It's amazing. But I can tell what's going on with me through how I sleep. If I wake up, I used to wake up thinking I was blind. It was a trippy thing. And I'd wake up and I'm like, I can't see it. Fuck, I can't see. And then we figured out sleep apnea and everything like that. So, but.
One of my best friends, she's won like 12 Emmys she's a reporter, a journalist.
Well, that's 9 more than I've won.
Yeah. and she's
More
got,
than I won. I got a big donut. Maybe we'll get one for this show.
Oh, I hope so.
That's funny.
She has psychosomia, which is like, it's like a smaller version of bipolar.
Ooh.
And she says,
Wait,
I
what
have
did you
to.
call it?
Psychosomia?
Damn, I never heard of that.
Is it cyclothymia?
Is that what, you're the doctor.
No, I think,
Cyclo-
I'm trying to remember. I think it's cyclothymia.
Okay. It's like the down, one
It's like
step down from.
a mini version of cycling.
Of bipolar. She says, and she's a journalist, so she's always like, her mind can't.
Yeah.
She's like, I have to sleep. If I don't sleep, that's when I get manic. And I can tell when she's manic because she starts talking really fast.
Yeah, sure.
And then I was like, okay, girl, breathe. Like, and I already know the signs. But she says sleep is of the utmost importance. So she takes naps to make sure that
yes.
she gets enough sleep. So.
But too much sleep
That's
is,
not
is a whole nother end, right? That's
Yeah,
that's
that-
when that's
yeah, I don't like to-
the
yeah.
depths of despair. People are
Oh,
sleeping
that's
for,
a whole other thing. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Tell tell everyone about your little
You're saying
saying.
that you're
Oh,
about
the quick.
bed.
Oh, yeah. The well, that's during depression. You know, I say your bed is your quicksand. So I just had something live on Facebook, and somebody said, "You know what? I'm depressed. I can't get out of bed." I said, "When you're depressed, whenever you say you can't do something, that's when you got to do it."
Yeah.
And after I escaped from the mental institution, I was in an 8-month depression, and I was literally rolling out of bed. But at least I rolled out of bed. Nothing felt good. Sex, nothing. It was horrific. And the only time that I was happy was when I was dreaming, because I could dream happy.
Oh, that's so.
And then I'd wake up, and then reality slapped me in the face. But yeah,
So you're Latino, right?
yeah.
Although everybody thinks you're Italian because you look Italian,
Yeah.
but
Well, I've been playing Italian for 30 years.
and Morales, that's my last name too.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Mauricio Jose Morales.
Morales, you're from Nicaragua?
Yeah.
Nicaragüense?
Oh my
Papa de
God.
Nicaragua y mamá de San Salvador.
Ah, yo soy cubana.
Which
Cubana.
one of these is not like the other? The white Jewish
Do
kid.
the white boy. Do the white boy.
I played Desi Arnaz.
I was gonna bring that up. I
the matter,
saw
honey?
that. Lucy.
Lucy, I'm home.
You could be Lucy.
Hey.
And I'm getting some, I have some, just so this audience here, state of mind audience, I got some t-shirts that I'm putting out, and they have all these sayings and logos that I've said on the t-shirts, and it's state of mind, different logo than that, better than that. And I can't wait for be able to give you all that, you know. So,
The swag.
Merch.
yeah, the merch.
Yeah. Maurice, what would people tell us a little bit about your book?
Well, my book is my life, right? And thank God I had Sue Black to help me write it, because I think without Sue, there would not be that on the top, New York Times bestseller.
Well,
Um,
it's the content.
It's both.
It's your content.
yeah, yes, it is my content, and my life I've been through a lot. I'll never forget during the pandemic when, you know, that was one of my goals, you know, to be New York Times bestseller. Just something about it. I thought it was cool, you know.
It is cool. It's
important, yeah.
impressive.
And I didn't know, and I was going through hell, and I want to get back to the Lexapro thing, because can I get back to something else real quick, and then remind
As
me?
long as you
Yes.
promise to tell us about the
Yeah,
book.
I'm going to tell you about.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, but can you remind me, because I'll forget about the book.
Yeah.
You're taking Lexapro.
Yes.
Here's one thing I want to talk about. But you know, I was seeing a therapist during the pandemic who saved me earlier from anxiety, but this time, these doctors that I was seeing, they knew how bad I was. And I should have been taking Lexapro like the first month. But nobody said anything.
Not for your bipolar.
Not for bipolar.
the anxiety.
For
the
the anxiety.
anxiety.
Okay.
And I wasn't going to say to the therapist, I'm thinking about killing myself every morning, day and night. I'm even having thoughts of how.
Suicidal ideation.
Right. I would not say it because I knew that.
And they never asked you? I mean, that's part of the
Well,
drill.
they asked me, but I kind of didn't.
Fudged.
Kind of went, you know, I did, you know, because
Sidestepped it.
yeah, that's a good one. You got those good words going. And, but now, in retrospect, I should have been, you know, because what happened was I went through 4 months of these thoughts, and then I finally went to a psychiatrist who wasn't. He was a little bit off, but we connected, and he put me on Lexapro, and it literally saved my life.
It is like a miracle.
But you're still on. I got off in 8 to 9 months.
Oh yeah, it's we were talking about it in the car. I'm about to
Wean off it.
Yeah, I've been on it 6 months.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
We're not dispensing any medical advice.
Yeah,
here,
no,
right?
no.
This is just a very personal thing.
Exactly.
Well, getting personal.
But wow, I mean, it would have been about at least how many months of not suffering for me. If somebody would have said, look, you got to you got to go see, you know.
Was it easy to wean off, or
Yeah.
do you still have does the anxiety?
I came back to work. It was difficult because if I had to come back a month earlier, I wouldn't have been able to come back to work. There's no way I could have acted with the way I was feeling. But I was on the Lexapro a bit, and it was helping me. And I had to go back and do this Alzheimer's story where the character is dying of Alzheimer's and my dad is dying. My real dad is dying of Alzheimer's.
Oh my God.
I
Life
won 2
imitating
Emmys,
art.
1 year, and then I won again because it was that true. The story was so.
Close to
But
the best.
but I got, you know, if I didn't have Lexapro, they wouldn't go back to the acting. I would have been at home. So I believe, so kind of like what you just said, you can get through the minor anxieties or depression on your own, but if it gets to a certain point, you need to get professional help. That's
When
my
crystals start coming out of every you know, it's time to get on Lexapro.
That didn't work as well as the Lexapro.
So the book, I'll get back to that. That was during that period, and I'll never forget the HarperCollins, the book company. They're like, "Can you call us back real quick?" And I'm like, "Oh no, what did I do now?" And I'm in that state, so I'm like, "Oh, please don't put me
Overanalyzing everything.
So I'm like, "Hi," and they're like yelling, "Guess who's a New York Times bestseller?" and everything.
Oh my God.
And I said, but the problem was, I couldn't feel. I was so messed up. And I remember walking outside. No one was home. It was just me. And I walked outside and a tear just came down. And then my family came home and I said, "Hey, you know, I just got the New York Times bestseller." But there was no celebration, nothing. And that was it. And that's the end of that story. But it was bittersweet.
But you should be celebrating. That's impressive.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah,
It really is.
yeah.
What your readers are gonna find in your book is your life journey
Yeah,
and how you got on General Hospital. You talk about your bipolar.
Yeah, my wife, there's a story about my wife that I love. When I first met my wife, I was 21. And I asked her out. She was working at a merry-go-round. And I go in and I said, "You want to go out?" She said, "Yeah, I'll go out." Yeah. And then I told my buddy Manny, who's not with us anymore, God bless you. I said, "You know, she's young, man. I think 6, you know." So I stood her up. And then a year later, after the mental institution, I went back in, she's still there, and I said, "You want to go?" And I know I stood you up, and I'm sorry, but you want to go out again? You want to double date with my buddy? You bring a girl? So we did that, and I went back to my house, and I remember as she left, I kissed her, and I thought, man, she damn good kisser. I swear to God, I'll never forget. I'm like, damn, those lips, man. And we started going out and whatnot, and she would never let me pick her up at her house. And I'm like, "Can you just pick me up at the corner? Can you just pick me up at the mall after work?" I said, "But okay." This went on for months. Finally, I went to her house, and this lady answers, like no teeth, just, you know, it was like, "Who's this?" It's her mother. And I walk in, and these guys they're like 10, 12 people in there like this, just looking at me like that. And I'm like, and then there's Paula coming out with her hand in her face, going into her room, and then her mother's like, she has no makeup on. And I'm like, what the hell's going on here? This is like a movie.
That's like the least of your problems at that point, right?
And I'm like, what am I gotten myself into? And so then Paula comes out, and we get in the car, and I said, she goes, now you know why I never wanted you to pick me up. And I said, you know what, Paula? I don't care if you're rich, poor, doesn't matter to me. I care about you. That's it. All this other stuff doesn't matter. And we've been together about 35 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a beautiful story.
Yeah, and then there's a lot more than that, but.
So who was it in the living room? Was it
That
like,
was
was
her-
it like a drug den, or what was going on?
Yeah, they're all drug. Her mother's was a drug addict.
Yeah.
Her uncle was a drug addict. Her sister, they all did drugs, but Paula. You know those movies where you see all these bad people, but there's always that girl who's
Yeah.
like not doing anything, and that was Paula.
She's like, I never want to be that.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Wow.
So running short on time. Question for you, just to kind of, well, two questions for you. But the first question is, what do you hope to achieve with State of Mind? Because I mean, the format is interesting, right?
Yeah.
It's obviously the conversations you have are not, they're very deep, right? And there's no fluff in your episodes. But like, what is it about creating awareness, or is there more to it than that?
It's a good question. I like that question. It's creating what I've been doing, I know has created awareness already, because I have a very close relationship with the audience, and they tell me things, and it's beautiful. With State of Mind, I mean, I just want to continue what it is. It's like when you watch it, like people have said, like it's like you're looking through a peephole and you're seeing these two people have a real conversation. It doesn't have to be deep. It just always seems like that. Like we're in there and we're just laughing, and then I cry and maybe somebody else cries, but it's that vibe. Now, because somebody wanted to take it to streaming and whatnot. Do I want it to be bigger? I don't really know, because I don't want to lose that. But do I want to reach a bigger audience?
Right.
Yeah. So that's it.
Excellent. No, that's great.
What is one thing that you've learned from your guests?
Oh man, it's funny. I met the psychiatrist who diagnosed me with bipolar. I hadn't seen him in 37 years. I did a State of Mind in Graceland, and they surprised me with him coming out and I cried like a baby when I saw him. It was like,
I saw that.
yeah, it was great. And he said to me at his house, we went back to his house. Now we're talking and we're like this, instead of me being, this guy who just got out of a mental institution. So he said to me, he said, State of Mind has been your therapy. And I said, I never really, and I think about how well I've done in the last 2 years. And it's when I started State of Mind.
How well you've done
With no anxiety.
mentally, like
Yeah,
just
mental
internally.
health, yeah. My mental health has been fantastic. Sleeping well, no depression, no anxiety.
Were you not doing any version of psychotherapy prior to that?
I like your questions right now. They're really good.
I'd like to say I'm a professional, but not in this format.
Here's the thing, man. It's been a while since I've only seen a therapist when I needed it. I wasn't seeing one on a daily basis. Before the pandemic, same thing. And there's been a lot of anxiety in this, so I probably should have been seeing somebody. Right, I get it. But in the last 2 years with State of Mind and YouTube, I haven't seen anybody, and so literally this has to be the reason.
It's your therapy.
Yeah, because I'm crying in there. I'm hearing this guest talk. I'm learning stuff, and
Connecting.
I mean, I guess, yeah. And should I still see somebody? Probably. But
Well, if you're doing well, you're doing well. What does it matter how you get there, right?
yes. And I believe that wholeheartedly, but somebody may say, well, you still, But so far, so good. And that's what I get from the guests, that connection. And, what is funny is I get to go through stuff in the week, and then I put it out on, like, I'll talk about, like, if I yelled at somebody on the set, and then I go into State of Mind, I'm like, you know what I just did this week? I don't know why, but I wanted to kill this person. And then,
But that's kind of what you do in therapy, right? So,
It is.
yeah,
And you have to pay for it.
yeah.
and
You don't have to pay it. You're going to put therapists out of business.
that's the thing. That's the thing. So, yeah.
So we always I like to wrap up with one specific question, and that specific question is: if you had not gone into acting, become an actor and author and now podcast host,
Yeah.
had you not gone kind of into entertainment, what do you think you would have done with your life?
Well, I think it would have been trouble. It would have been tough for me because, I was working at a supermarket, and I knew that wasn't where nothing against people working at supermarkets.
I worked at Gelson's when I was in
Yeah.
high school.
I mean, I worked at farmers market, but I knew that wasn't enough for what my mind was at. So, I don't know. It wouldn't have gone well. I think I ended up dead or in jail. I mean, I was in
So neither of those are professions, right?
yeah, because I didn't have school, man. I didn't have anything else going for me. I just knew that. Well, modeling didn't hit either, but
At least you tried.
I tried.
You had an A for effort.
And acting, thank you. That's what I knew when I first started acting. That was in here. Even though I wasn't good, it's going to be for me. And the only thing that I'm upset about right now is that you didn't even get close to a tear. And
That's not true.
But he got vulnerable. He got vulnerable.
oh, he did?
Oh, yeah, that's his.
I've been crying on the inside this whole time.
But he got vulnerable. Dr. B's not.
Because I don't know him.
I'm not immune. I'm not immune.
Oh, he got vulnerable?
I told you I didn't want to break down in front of everybody, especially Elizabeth. I got to show some
I
sort
didn't
of...
want to push too much of trying to get him to go there, but
Well, but you can, when I'm on your show, you can pummel me. And then that's going to be the end of my plastic surgery. I'm not going to that guy. Is he going to start crying in the operating room?
you're a plastic surgeon. Like what? You do all kinds of
I do all kinds of everything. Yeah.
How's
He's
that?
an amazing plastic surgeon.
How is it? It's an interesting job. It really is.
Like, man, you make a lot of people happy, obviously.
That's the goal.
Well,
I mean,
imagine
it is.
it's so mentally draining.
It is mentally
You gotta
draining.
be. I mean, he's on
Dude,
his
you're
feet
like this?
7 hours.
It is. People think it's very glamorous. It's not glamorous. It's exhausting, but it's rewarding. And by the way, there's a huge amount of psychology that goes into what I do every day, talking to patients. Because you think about some of the stuff. There's a lot of insecurity. It takes a lot for someone to kind of conquer their insecurities and come in and say, "This is what's been bothering me for 20 years." There's a huge psychological aspect to it, and I didn't get nearly the amount of psychiatric and psychological training in medical school that I should have for this job.
Yeah, but what you have is you seem honest, and you got a calmness about you that I think helps in what you do.
And he's meticulous in his
Totally.
work.
Well, that's because I'm a Virgo.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean?
That's how I met him.
I'm definitely OCD.
Oh, really?
I met him as a patient, and I'm like, let me produce your podcast.
You're doing a podcast. And I said,
Yeah.
no, I'm not.
And
here we are.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jay.
and here we
Yeah,
are.
see, I'm interested in that.
Yeah.
I like
well, Maurice, really quick, a little birdie told me that March 1st was your birthday. So we wanted to bring a little celebratory cake to wish you a happy birthday.
Oh, wow.
And can we go get it?
Boy, that doesn't even say happy 40th.
Happy 40th, Maurice.
41, actually. I'm 41.
Oh, here, let's move your book. I don't want to get any frosting on the book.
Oh, that's nice, man. Thanks.
And
It's a bundt cake.
It's a Black Forest bundt cake. And then you get to make your wish.
Oh, yeah. Make this a good one.
I don't have my glasses on, so I can't see. Am I near the candle? Am I near it?
You're there. You're good.
Okay, ready?
You can't tell us what the wish is, right?
Oh, no,
You
no,
know
of
the
course
rules.
not.
You know the rules.
Yeah.
Happy birthday!
Happy birthday.
Woo!
For a second, I was thinking that you were going to put those birthday candles on that you can't pull
That you
out.
can't blow out. No, I didn't want to do that to our guests here. Maurice, can you look into camera and tell everybody all your social media
Yeah.
and State of Mind, where they can find State of Mind?
Yeah. All my social media is MB Maurice Benard, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, and State of Mind is on YouTube. We just hit 100,000 subscriptions.
Wow,
It was-
amazing.
It was hard, but I couldn't have done it without the audience. The audience is amazing. And now I just kind of do State of Mind. It's not a big deal. I just kind of do. No, I'm just kidding.
Now you're shooting for 500.
Please don't start with that, man. Well,
I can't take the pressure.
there's 3 milestones: 100,000, 1 million, and 10 million.
You're going to get there.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
You can't think about that.
No.
You got a baby step.
Exactly.
Well, I got to say, Maurice, I've been a big fan for a very long time. I've followed you through General Hospital when I was in school, and it was what all the girlfriends did. We watched General Hospital, and you are an amazing actor.
Thank you.
And
Thank
I wish you much continued success
Thank you.
and
Thank you.
keep being vocal. We need people like
We
you.
need outspoken people. Thanks for watching and listening to Beyond the OR with Dr. Brenner, with our guest Maurice Benard. This has been a lot of fun. Make sure to like, follow, and subscribe on all formats, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thanks so much for listening to Beyond the OR with Dr. Brenner. Make sure to subscribe, like, and follow so you don't miss any future episodes. In the meantime, hit me up on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Kevin Brenner MD and KevinBrennerMD.com.